Hello, I'm very happy to be here with Erín Moure, and my name is Cesarco Eglin, and I'm a poet and translator from Spanish, Portuguese, Portuñol, and Galician. I'm also the publisher of Veliz books, which this year we published Erín Moure's translation of Uxío Novoneyra's The Uplands book of the Courel and other poems. And today we're here with the wonderful Erín to talk about her translation of this book. And I'm going to read a short bio that doesn't do Erín Moure's justice, her path, but here it goes. Erín Moure has published over 40 books of poetry, essays, memoir, as well as translations and co-translations from Galician, French, Portuguese, and Spanish into English. Between 2007 and 2016, she translated renowned poet Chus Patos' pentalogy Delve, de Crua. Her most recent translations are of the Brazilian Wilson Bueno's Paraguayan Sea that came out in 2017 from Night Boat. And she published the translation of Lupe Gomez's Camouflage, also from the Galician, that came out with Circumference in 2019, and which has been recently longlisted for the best translated book award. Congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
And how did you decide to translate Uxío Novoneyra?
The Uxío Novoneyra Foundation got in touch with me and asked me if I would translate a book called this book here, The Distance of the Wolf, which is a biography of Novoneyra. I knew who Novoneyra was from my readings of Galician poetry by Anton Lopo, another poet and writer who I like a lot. He was a friend of Novoneyra's, and he wrote a biography of Novoneyra after he died in the first person. So Novoneyra recites the entire biography from his, and at the beginning of the biography he dies, and at the end he's born.
Wow.
So he wrote the biography backwards as well. So this was a way of being able to let people know about what the foundation was doing and let people know who Novoneyra was. But they, nobody knows who Novoneyra is, so that it seemed kind of crazy to publish this biography or do this biography when nobody knows what his poetry is like in English, because we just haven't seen it. So I asked if I could add some poetry. So that's how I started. I wasn't part of my agreement with them, but they let me translate some poetry. I managed to convince them that it would be a good idea to put some of the man's poetry in this book. So we did. And so that was where I started. And then I started to just translate more of the poems. You know, I would, every day or every couple of days, I would translate a poem and be fooling around with the intricacies of it, as you know, I like to do. So I was just kind of collecting more of the poems together, thinking, oh, someday maybe there'll be a reason to publish a book. And I got, this far. I got enough together for a book, and I decided to submit using Submittable to Veliz books.
And we're happy that you did.
I'm
very
happy
proud of this book. So tell us a little bit about The Uplands.
Well, it's a book, Ocedos in Galician. It refers in the Courel to it's a high mountainous area. I don't know if you could see this, a photo that I took. There's very steep, small fields, chestnut forests, different kinds of woods. There's woods that are treasures of Europe there, because they're the only place where you can find mixed Atlantic and Mediterranean wood in the same forest. Wow. So it's very magical place. It was the kind of place that had utterly no roads until up through the 60s, and that Uxío Novoneyra and his father, when they wanted to go in and out of that area, they went on horseback, because you couldn't even bring a wagon, it was too steep. So it interested me, his Galician, which when he's taught to school kids, his Galician needs to be footnoted for the school kids. And his attitude of environmentalism towards the land and towards the music and the vocabulary and the lexicon that goes with that land. And I just liked his relationship to the land. Like, he does not write landscape poetry. He does not write descriptive poetry. He writes poetry that's very minimalist. There was this relationship with the weather too, with not just plants and things, but with the air and things that go on in the air, like fog and rain, with labor. And also his relationship with popular culture, traditional popular culture, which he does not see as being contrary, like to the avant-garde, as being, you know, his avant-garde does not exclude traditional popular culture. So I grew up kind of with Canadian mountain culture. And another thing I had in common with Novoneyra as well is he was asthmatic and had a lot of trouble with respiratory illness. He would not have fared well with COVID-19. And I was just intrigued by it and wanted to bring this poetry into English.
And what was your process of translating or of translation?
My process of translation,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, look at it and read it out loud and make Galician words and read it out loud again in Galician and read it in English and try to see how the sounds were working and just try to see how I could make, Galician's very compact as it is. And sometimes to translate some things in Galician that are this long, you actually need this, like just the relationship of indirect and direct objects and
Mm-hmm.
and verbs, the way verbs work, and the way you don't need to put the personal pronoun at the beginning of a sentence. The verb conjugation tells you how many people are speaking and what person they are. And if it's confusing or ambiguous, sometimes that doesn't matter. So it doesn't really get straightened out till it does matter.
Right.
There's less of a focus on it. But I ended up like, here's one of the little poems here. Sometimes I would make 3 or 4 translations of a poem because I couldn't really get at the music of the poem. I couldn't really convey it with just one translation. And for me, reading it in Galician, various kinds of possibilities kept shimmering in my head, and I wanted to leave a sense of that shimmer. So this poem here, can I just read it?
Yes, please.
It's just a little 3-line poem. The Galician's not on this page. The Galician's on some of the pages, but not on the others. I didn't want to interrupt Novoneyra either with, you know, this play between the languages all the time, but I did want people to see some of the Galician. Anyway, this is 3 that are about snowbells, which the snowbell season up where I am in Montreal is just ending. So, northern reach of the snowbells, flowering smoke. The second one is ultimate north of the snowbells, flower of smoke. And the next one is northern limit of the snowbells, smoke puff blooms. Yeah. So I just found it fun to play with those words, you know.
And as a reader, it's very interesting. I would actually had this page open.
Which page is that?
That's page 52.
Okay.
And it's very interesting for the reader, in a sense, to see all the scenes, you know, in translation, right? So you have several versions. In other pages, you have footnotes. So as readers, we're privy to Novoneyra because you translated him, but also to your thought process, which I find super interesting. Mm-hmm. And as a result, the book design that you made is very particular and interesting. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't know if you can see, but there are different shades of gray, different shades. There's black, there's gray, there's white spaces, words in capital letters.
Big poems.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that's inspired by his use of poetry in space, because he has things here like he also wrote poems that he called calligrams or ergograms that were just, he would stand over a big piece of paper and just, you would think about what urge was coming out of him, and then he would scribble the poem so that he wouldn't plan the poem in advance and then draw it. This is actually the result of this active gestural process. And I mean, like this one here has two translations as well. I'll just read the two translations of this poem. All the snows raised, all the fog shredded, spurious wind blown, all the furious moons. And then this is the way it's actually divided up in here. All the snows raised, all the fog shredded, all the moons in fury. Often the Galician is in gray, just so that whoever wants to read the book in English can just read through in English and have the experience of the spaces. Because I really wanted to create like a mini Courel, a mini visit to the Courel, so that people could just go and be in space. And that's why I wanted it square. You know, I'm endlessly grateful to you and to Veliz for being enthusiastic about creating the book as an actual space to inhabit, and not just as the foundation, the support for a bunch of printed poems, but the book itself, and holding the book and opening the book and making those spaces is part of the experience of reading the book. I guess I should read another poem, though.
Yes, please.
I'll read and Novoneyra also wrote longer, more oratorical, declarative poems. And can I read one of those?
Yes, please.
I know that I want to read in Galician too, and so I'm just going to read a stanza at a time of this one. It's the one on page 1819.
Oh, great.
It's actually the first poem in the book after the introduction. Onde só queda alguém para aguentar dos nomes, ponho eu a ampla fronda a redoma d'un castinheiro, e sentada a sua sombra junta a longa estirpe do último labrego. Where one person is still left to bear the names, I place the ample canopy, the root force of a chestnut, and seated in its shade together, the long lineage of the last land laborer. Non como as estirpes dos reis, ciscadas en múltiples pasos e alcazares e países diversos, senão as estirpes campesinas, gerações e gerações juntas à porta das casas fechadas, na escalera de pedra, unas reganhas fora de uma árvore como esta. Unlike the lineage of kings scattered in manors and palaces, pasos and alcazars across Europe and Africa, instead, the lineages of peasant laborers, generations and generations, gathered at the door of shut houses, on the staircase of stone, or in the root spread of a tree like this. Estirpes de gleba, amosados mortos que nin osha o sol de suyo, cuando se erguían para gadañar co orvallo. Lineages of the glebe, appearing from the dead, and even the July suns unstartled when they rose up to scythe in the dew. Gadagnare otro anno, gadagnare in omenasci, non porque a erba volva tenera e igual, e defender os prados ganados a bosa. I'll scythe too next year. I'll scythe in homage, and not so that the grasses grow back high and sweet, nor to defend the meadows won from scrub. Gadagnare como as grandes rogadas do vrau, tra los gadañeros sucesivos, lambendo con brio los castaños de diante. I'll scythe as we once did in the great work bees of summer, behind the row of scythers licking the heels in front of them with brio. Ir e vir da gadagna canta a ritmo binario, sobre un fondo de roche, o rio continuo. Back and forth the scythe sings its binary rhythm above a backdrop of ongoing roar or river. The next poem, that I just read two more and let you. This is another one of his ergograms, and you can see the last line here is his signature. And it's in 4 lines. It's almost like the poem looks like rain and fog.
Yeah.
And it says in Galician and Gallego, it says, Courel dos tesos cumes que oyen de noche, e qui sentese ben o poco que é un hombre. Courel of high peaks that gaze from afar. Here it truly hits you, how a man's a paltry thing.
It's amazing. Since we're running out of time, I'd like to ask you if there's anything else you'd like to comment on before we say goodbye.
Oh, I think that's it. I hope that people will maybe look up this book and go into it. If it's a good time these days to take a virtual voyage, and this is really what this book is, the way I see it. It's a virtual way of entering into this high terrain of the mountains and learning something about a way of life that's vanishing. But for me, it's still very alive.
That, and also as a translator, I have to say that this book is yet another voyage, right? Where we get to see how a translator works and the decision that a translator makes and why. So it's as if there was 2 books in one. It's a beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you so much. So thank you very much, Erín.
Thank you very much, Laura.
Bye.
Take care.
You too.